All right, James Jackson
Hey,
Jr., thank you for taking some time to chat with me today. Appreciate it.
thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Of course. So I'd like to begin by asking you just a couple of questions about A Strange Loop first, because that was your Broadway
Okay.
debut, right?
Old age years old.
I'm sorry. Of course, the video again cut out right as you was responding. Can you please repeat that?
But yes, A Strange Loop was my Broadway debut at very old years old.
Well, how meaningful was it for you to be in a show like that?
It was a very meaningful experience. It was something I got to work on with Michael, the writer, for almost it's for 12 years.
Hmm.
So working on it from I always tell people I worked on this in Michael's apartment. I worked on it for free in like basements and in classrooms for years. And then to see it actually make it all the way to Broadway is it's one of the biggest like and most rewarding experiences of my career. So I'm so thankful for it. It was I can't really put it in was like, and people ask me that all the time, but I kind of wish it on everyone to get to
Yeah.
go through something from like sort of inception all the way to the furthest possible space. It has enriched me in so many wonderful ways.
Great, great. Yeah, that was kind of my next question. Like, what did this production teach you as an artist?
Um, how important collaboration is really the one thing that not the one thing, but the sort of the main thing that I've taken away from this. That there's a quote of Michael's that like has fed me since I heard him say it years ago. That only you get to decide what kind of collaborator you will be,
Hmm.
and I'm so drawn to that because I think that that's kind of all we have
Yeah.
is how well we work with other people in any scenario. If it's the server at your table or whatever, only you get to decide how you enter into those relationships of collaboration. And I've used that kind of going forward in kind of everything.
Yeah.
And it has really helped how I get through those things. It has taught me how to ask for what I need, um, without necessarily calling it like advocating for myself, because it sort of says that something's wrong. But just how to ask for what I need. I think that's really important in a creative scenario. And if you can do it there, you can really do it anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
Definitely. Definitely.
yeah.
Well, now you could be seen in the new opera Broadway musical, White Girl in Danger, which was also created by Michael R. Jackson. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, can you tell us more about your character?
So White Girl in Danger is it's a soap opera. It's a sort of a musical spoof of soap operas.
Mhm.
Um, which I love because I'm a child of the 80s and 90s and shoulder pads and Dynasty and Falcon Crest and Dallas and all of that. And it is about a young black girl who wants to be the center of one of those stories, and which was
Mhm.
never the case, or not never the case, but it wasn't really handled too well back in the 80s and 90s. And I am a member of that town. I can tell you that it's sort of revealed later on who I am in
Yeah.
this town called All White. But I play a character named Clarence, who
Okay.
appears to be the janitor in that town, sort of happy-go-lucky, just like janitor guy in the town. And what I love in the character breakdown in the once this actually comes out in script form and book form, the character breakdown for Clarence says that he is as close to a magical Negro character as the script will ever get.
Okay.
I'm sort of filling that role, but there's a bit of a twist that is revealed later on in the show about him.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah,
Well, the show actually premiered yesterday at the time of this recording. It premiered yesterday. So, how was the
yeah.
reception?
We've been in previews for about 3 weeks, and the official opening was last night, and it's crazy. Like it's Michael, so Michael has now a Pulitzer Prize and a Tony Award for his words, and
Yeah.
so Michael loves his words and his language, and I love saying them and getting them to see as a performer. So which is probably why I do a lot of cabaret stuff. I'm
Mhm.
so focused on how the audience is receiving words or what they're how they're registering things. So the reception has been so cool. It's a lot like a strange loop. People
Okay.
are coming to see musical theater, and Michael loves musical theater, but some of the things he chooses to write about are not the typical things you see or
Hmm.
hear in musical theater. So I love listening to audiences receive this stuff. There's a in second stage where we are for the theater for White Girl in Danger. I'm sitting the front row on house left. There's a little doorway, which it's probably a fire exit, you would think if you're just in the audience. It's actually where a lot of the quick changes are happening for actors.
Okay.
And I am sitting on a stool right outside that door, like inches outside of that door. So I have an ear on the audience, and I love listening to them receive Michael's jokes or little jabs at whatever. It's that's a big thrill for me too, is watching people take this stuff in.
Yeah.
The reception has been, it's exactly what you would think. This should not be in the musical theater. This is not for us. We're not supposed to have things like this. And there are people who are like, yes, give this to me. Change the form. Like, I think Michael is one of those sort of genre shifting writers.
Hmm.
So I love watching people hear that, receive it, and then decide how they want to react, positive or negative. So
Hmm. For sure.
that's been thrilling too to
Good.
sit through.
Good. Good. Well, what do you ultimately hope audiences take away from the show?
I people, this is, someone asked me this last night, like on the red carpet. So I've been trying to formulate my answers around this. I think I want people to think about their own story.
Okay.
You're the center of your own story. And if you had to tell your life story to someone, I hope you would tell it as truthfully as possible.
Okay.
And if you do that, I think the person who's tasked with retelling your story would want to be true to how you told it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
You'd want to be as clear as you can in telling your own story, and the person you're telling it to will honor that and want to do right by you. I think how you tell your story is very um it's are in your own story is very important. And that way when someone has to retell your story, they will maintain your truth and they will respect you.
Yeah.
This is about someone wanting to have their story centered because they have felt that it has never been centered.
Hmm.
And it would make the storyteller um, want to respect that. And I think it's about really honoring how we tell each other's stories.
Hmm.
And I think this is a great example of who has been centered in stories for so long and who has not. And what would you do if you had to tell the story of someone who was not centered?
Hmm.
Um,
For sure.
I think that's such a wonderful thing that we are recently in recent years being all tasked to do, um, with certain sensitivities and what it makes you think of when you are telling stories that may not pertain to you or your world. Um, I think it's really beautiful to watch that and to learn how to do that as a society.
Yeah,
So why
definitely.
not do it in musical theater where you can do anything?
Exactly. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, James, have you always had a passion for acting and performing?
Um, I'm inclined to say no, but it's bold-faced lie. Like it, when I think about, I was an only child. My mother had been a piano prodigy when she was very young, so I was always around music and the arts. My mother made sure of that, and I was an only child, so I was, putting on shows for my stuffed animals,
Hmm.
or I guess I was putting on shows for my parents too, and I there's a story of me actually charging admission to like, and it was mostly me doing rip-offs of like the Muppet Show.
Of
I
course.
would I would do my best Fozzie Bear jokes or something like that, but I would draw up little tickets and then sort of charge my parents, a quarter or a dollar or
You went
whatever to
all
come
in.
see my show. Yeah. So I've always been drawn to it. Um, one of the first things I noticed was my mother taught me to read music by her playing the piano at family functions, a wedding, a funeral, whatever, and I would have to turn pages for her.
Hmm.
So she taught me how to read music that way. My mother was very short. She was 5 feet tall. So I remember her playing an organ and she couldn't reach the foot pedals. So I got to work the foot pedals for her and turn pages, which was fascinating. But I also learned that whatever was happening in the room, at a funeral, at a wedding, someone gets up to say some remarks or a toast, and it might be too long. And my mother would speed up the music she was playing or start playing.
Okay.
And I noticed at a very young age that sort of set the bar for what happened in the room. And maybe, my therapist will say it probably works around my control issues. But I realized that, like, oh, if you speed up the music, wrap up what they're doing. Or if you slow down the music, the room feels a certain way. And I was so fascinated by that at like age 6
Okay.
that I think there's something that still speaks to me of like, oh, this is happening on stage and the audience does this. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Um, so I've always been drawn to that, but it's totally my mother's fault.
Of course.
It's very my
Always a
mother's fault.
mother. Well, starting on May 1st, you have a new concert on Broadway playing at Chelsea Table and Stage. What can you tell us about
Yes.
that?
I see maybe 12 years ago started doing this cabaret stuff. But it's all been music that has been the soundtrack of my life. I made a great mixtape in the 90s, but it was, the music that inspired me. So it was a lot of, and I'm a true lesbian at heart, just a New England lesbian, masquerading as this 6'3" Black gay man. But I love the Indigo Girls and Ani DeFranco and Tori Amos and Joni Mitchell, along with my mother's influence of like Nina Simone and Aretha Franklin and Gladys Knight. So my cabaret shows have been a lot of that, but
Mhm.
I've also made my career doing a lot of musical theater, stage work. May 1st at Chelsea Table and Stage, and it's all music from Broadway, which is utterly terrifying to me because it's stuff that I love and has inspired me for years, but I've never told anyone about it,
Mhm.
or I've never sung some of it. In my own shows for the last 12 years, I've probably done one musical theater song per
Okay.
show.
Really?
Maybe. And that's a really soft maybe. So to do a whole night of that is really like, James, can you do that? And I spoke to my music director and I spoke to my band, and they were like, oh, you can do that. We're just going to do it our way,
All right.
um, which I'm super excited to try.
Okay.
I Last year, it was back when Into the Woods was on Broadway. I think I tweeted, I would love to someday in some production somewhere play the baker's partner.
Okay.
Because I've always been fascinated with, I love Joanna Gleason as the baker's wife. I love Sarah Bareilles as the baker's wife. I was like, and Stephanie J. Block too. And I was like, at some point, I would love to play the baker's partner in some sort of reimagined thing. And it got a lot of interesting responses on Twitter where there
Mhm.
were people who were like, absolutely not. That's a how dare he, the purists. And then there were some theater kids who were like, yeah, I want to see this. Yes, Queen, do that. Um, so I tried one. I did a solo show back in like October or November, and I sang "Moment in the Woods" from Into the
Okay.
Woods,
Good
and
stuff.
people were like, "Oh my God, this works!" Like, and I did it my way, and the band was very much with me, and it was an arrangement we would do. And people were like, "Absolutely, you could do something like this." So I'm piecing this together. I actually have a rehearsal today, my first rehearsal with my music director to try this music out.
Mhm.
I'm I'm very much Little Red Riding Hood right now. I'm excited and scared.
Yeah.
Um, but I want to figure this out because this music is a large part of the foundation of who I am
Mm.
as a stage artist, and I want to try it. This is a part of me too, just as much as Tori Amos and Nina Simone.
Mhm. For sure. For sure. Sorry. Zoom is like cutting
No,
out for some reason. I apologize about
Zoom
that.
Zoom is, if we bought stock in Zoom 10 years ago, we'd be millionaires
I know, right?
now. But she also owns us.
Exactly. Yes. So this on Broadway at Chelsea Table
Yes.
Stage, is this just a one night only performance or will this be a recurring cabaret?
So here's the thing. Like, I said out loud that I have a career as a cabaret artist.
Mhm.
So then I go do this little Broadway show called A Strange Loop, and people like it. And I do this thing called White Girl in Danger, and people want more of me. So I have all these dates coming up. This summer I'm going to be in Provincetown doing some things. I'm going to go back to Provincetown in the fall. I'm trying to in my hometown in Boston also.
Mm.
And I have some other dates coming up at the Green Room 42, just at other places around New York City.
Yeah.
So I have all these concert dates that people are asking me to do. So right now we're one night only for on Broadway, but there are my inbox right now is people asking me about dates. So I think I have to do this again, which I am also terrified of. Um, so you want to be there for the first one for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Um, But I am excited to try this out. I just was in Florida about a week and a half ago, to speak to some kids at the University of South Florida, and then did like a mini truncated performance with us, my cohorts, and it was great. And people were really interested in what we have to say and what I do, and I was like, okay, I guess I have to really get back out there. So there are more dates
Okay.
upcoming, I
Okay.
promise.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
Very soon, I have to announce those, but this is the first dip into the pool,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I don't know why I'm scared. This is something, or that's what it's very. Is that Sunset Boulevard? I don't know why I'm frightened,
Mhm.
but I know my way around here, literally. But I'm very scared of this thing that I know so much about and have done 3 million times, but I feel like an absolute stranger here.
Well, I was always told before, like if you're not scared or you're not nervous, you don't really care that much. I think you have
Yeah,
passion in this. You just care.
I think that's all it is. I care, and I am that have inspired me and made me who I am.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm like utterly thrilled to do it, whether it works or not. And I think that's just kind of how my career works at all anyway.
Yeah.
I have been, there's parts of White Girl in Danger I have been utterly terrified to do. There were parts of A Strange Loop that I was utterly terrified to go out on stage and say. So why wouldn't this be the same thing? So
Exactly.
I think this is and what I hear, the feedback is that like it's absolutely utterly enjoyable and entertaining and such a pleasure to see. So I hope I live up to that for
I'm sure you will.
folks.
I'm sure you will. But yeah, you
And it's
mentioned.
live streamable too. So I have a lot of
Oh, okay.
friends out of town who are getting to watch this thing.
Oh, great.
Um, and I hear from them that people are just proud of me. So I'm trying to live up to that,
Hmm.
which is a lot of pressure, but I'm excited to try it.
Good, good. Well, you mentioned the Green Room 42, and with that venue, you are doing a live version of your podcast, Five Questions with James
Yeah.
Ben, which is with your Strange Loop co-star John-Andrew Morrison. And
Yes. And I'm very excited about that too. Like we're doing this residency of our podcast. I was just rehearsing with him this morning because that's what my one day off is about. How many rehearsals can I
Mhm.
squeeze into one day? So we are bringing our podcast a live version of our podcast to the Green Room 42 for the next 3 months. We have one that starts on this Monday, the 17th, and then next month, and then the month after that. And we're having special guests each month. So we're super excited to try all of these things. And it seems I spoke to him, he was at opening night last night, and I was like, "Are we doing too much?" And he was like, "I wouldn't have it any other way."
Exactly. So
So
busy.
it's really it's terrifying. But I think the only way you're gonna get these things done is to have them booked, have them on the calendar, and
Exactly.
figure them out and do them. We're talented enough, and we have an excellent music director for our live show, and our special guest is going to be John Michael Lyles, who played Thought 3 in A
Okay.
Strange Loop. So we are very excited for that. We're announcing that later today, that that's
Okay.
him.
Good.
Um, this is all like this is what we do, and this is, I think, it's part of that thing of only you get to decide what kind of collaborator you're going to be, and
Exactly.
this is part of that. I love working with John-Andrew Morrison, and I love our Five Questions thing that started out of the pandemic of us
Okay.
being like, we were Zoom friends
Okay.
because we couldn't
Okay.
be in the same room physically. We got on Zooms and got on FaceTimes to just check in with each other, and that morphed into a thing. So,
Mhm.
and if that is a thing that people want to see now, then we will prepare it and get it ready for folks. But
Good. Good. Hmm.
it's really going to be a fun the next couple weeks and months.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. Yeah, and for those who have not yet tuned into the podcast, or what makes it worth checking out? What is the podcast about?
It was Five Questions with James and Jam, and it
Obviously.
literally started as a balm during the pandemic, where we would, out of not being able to see each other while A Strange Loop was winning all these awards for our off Broadway work. Um, it's very weird to win an Obie Award over a Zoom
Yeah.
and not be able to congratulate and hug your cast members, your castmates. We started calling each other and interviewing each other. Like, okay, tonight's theme is 80s rock women. I'm going to ask you five questions. You ask me five questions, and that turned into a thing for the two of us. And then we said, well, what if we have friends who were in Broadway shows? Everybody's sitting at home wiping off groceries because that's what
Mhm.
we were all doing back then. And we started interviewing our friends. So we interviewing like Leslie Kritzer and all these folks from Broadway shows that were just buddies of ours, BD Wong and like all these folks. And that morphed into a thing that we got to do while we were on Broadway doing
Cool.
a strange loop. We did some great backstage stuff. And then we started to meet these celebrities on Broadway that we were like, wait a minute, we have a show. They came to see us in a show.
Mm.
And now we're like chit chatting with them on Instagram and things. Can they be on our show too? And so then we get to interview people like Ryan Reynolds and like, like, why are we talking to movie stars? But who are we?
Why not?
Um, it's hard to grasp that because we're like, we're just in this little show that people seem to like. And Ryan Reynolds said he'd be on our podcast. So that worked.
Yeah.
Um, so we're just kind of continuing in that vein and seeing if people are. It's very shocking that anyone wants to hear what we have to say, but it started as a sort of late night conversation between two friends that was just to soothe us during a time of like unprecedented world strife.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it has morphed into a really wonderful thing that is not about, it's not one of those podcasts that's about someone's resume. It's literally just about like, how are you getting through today?
Yeah.
How's Zoom treating you today? And people have really enjoyed. I speak to people every day who are like, "Oh, I've been going back and watching episodes of James and Jam for the last 2 years of work that we've done," and it's really lovely to hear what people have to say. And I hear that we are um, a soothing balm to others as well. So
Good, good.
it's
That's
really exciting to bring this to a live stage. We just did some of it in Florida, and we were like, "Oh, even the kids down here are like, yes, we love this thing." So I'm super excited to keep heading in that direction.
good, good. Awesome. All right, James. Well, how can one stay up to date with you?
I'm trying to update all of the things and be good about that. The only thing I'm not good with is TikTok. I cannot figure it out.
I'm,
But but
I'm
it's I'm on there, and I think there's one video of me saying I don't know what I'm doing. Um, but you can. I tried. My website is pretty up to date. TheJamesJacksonJr.com. You can find me on Instagram. That's probably the most updated thing. It's just J Jackson Jr. I'm on Twitter too, being rambly and obnoxious at Mr. JJ Jr. as well. Um, but I'm around.
you're around?
I guess I'm Googleable now,
Okay.
but find me on Instagram and harass me there. There's a
Okay.
lot of clips of things and taggable things on there that I like to share.
Okay, perfect. Well, then
Yeah.
before we wrap up, are there any other upcoming projects or anything else you'd like to mention or plug at this time?
I want folks to come to Chelsea Table and Stage and see me do this on Broadway show because I'm every emotion about it. I'm absolutely terrified, and I'm also so very proud of what I am trying to put together here.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I would love to collaborate with y'all. And if you can't come, watch it at home. You can like actually sit at home on your couch and live stream it,
Okay.
um, and yell at me from your couch.
The best way to do
It's
it.
the best way. The best
Yeah.
way.
All right, fantastic.